In this video, I will illustrate the concepts that were covered in the last videos of PLC theory. The video will go through the PLC configuration in software as well as setting up the connection interface in software. As promised, I'll do a demo for Schneider PLCs, Siemens, and lastly, Allen Bradley. So let's start with Schneider PLCs. So here we are on the engineering workstation. Remember that an engineering workstation is just a computer that you use to connect to the PLC. So now let us open the PLC configuration file. Remember that this file can be saved anywhere on your engineering workstation. So I have mine saved under Documents, and then I'm gonna go to Unity Projects. I'm gonna go to Demo Tutorials, and then this is my PLC config file. So I created this before this tutorial video to show you that the PLC config file can be saved anywhere on your engineering workstation, and you can share this file with anyone who wants to be able to see the configuration of your PLC in your plant. Just a disclaimer, technically this file is also called a PLC project, but I just call it the config file because of where we are in our lessons. Later, we will begin to call it the PLC project and you will see why. So then I'm gonna open this file by double clicking on it. So it opens up in the PLC software. So this is how the PLC software looks like. I will cover the PLC software in detail because it is a major part of our series in later videos. And I will also go into detail on how you create the PLC configuration. So this is the software which is called UnityPro, which is used to program Schneider PLCs. On the left plane here, we have our project arrangement. So for us, since we are looking at this as a config file, we will focus more on our hardware setup. So here on the left, if I expand these tabs, this gives us our hardware setup. Now this hardware setup must match exactly what you have physically in the field, meaning that each and every item that you see here represents a module that exists physically on your PLC. So this is what we mean by having your PLC configuration in software. So if we quickly go through this setup, you can see that at the top, it shows here at the first that you have your local drop. In other words, this represents the main rack of your PLC, and this is the rack where the CPU is located. Below that, you have here it's labeled as EIO drop, but this represents the remote drops or the remote racks of this PLC. Fortunately, this programming software comes with a very nice graphical interface, and if we open that up, it shows us a nice graphical representation of our PLC. So you can use the color coding as well as the module numbers to confirm that you have configured the modules in the software that you have on your physical setup. So you can see here you have the CPS, which represents the power supply, the CPU, and you also have a CRP. This card in this case is used for the main rack to communicate with the other remote racks. You have two digital input modules, you have two digital output modules, you have one analog input module and one analog out module. So if we go to the remote racks, I'm just going to open that up. So now you have your setup, which shows you the main PLC rack here on the left, and then we also have the first remote rack that we have on our PLC, and this remote rack also has a power supply. It also has a comms module which it uses to communicate with the main rack, and then we have another remote rack here which is a bit smaller. It also needs a power supply, it needs a comms card, and then it only has a digital input card and an analog input card. So this is just to illustrate that whatever you set up in the software or whatever you configure in the software must match what you have physically. So hence that's why we can refer to this as a config file, because currently it only has the PLC hardware configuration.